The Babylon Project was our last best hope for sci-fi, a self-contained podcast 1 hour long located on the internet, a place of fun and discussion for Babylon 5 fans everywhere, a shining beacon in cyberspace, all alone in the night. It was the dawn of the 20th anniversary of Babylon 5, the year the Great War to free Bab 5 came upon us all. This is a story of the last of the Babylon podcast. The year is 2016. The name of the place is the Babylon Project Podcast.
This is Maggie Eagan, your ISN news anchor, and you're listening to the Babylon Project podcast.
Hi there, Babylon 5 fans. Welcome to another episode of the Babylon Project podcast. This is Raul Wybera, and I am here with my good friend Jim Arrowwood. How are you tonight, my friend?
Very well. Looking forward to talking about And Now for a Word.
And now for a word, yes. This is episode, season 2, episode 15? 14.
Yes. Yeah, we're getting close to the end of another season.
Wow, it's been a while. This episode actually is, for me, and Straczynski said it would be a lot of people's favorites. For me, it was. I loved this episode.
Yeah, me too. I like it. I like it because of the perspective and the way they treat it like a real newscast.
Yeah. And it is. In fact, when it started, it's like, at first you're just like, okay, is this Babylon 5? Are they preempting us? This was sort of a first, from what I understand.
Yeah, I don't know. That could be, that may or may not be, but it is the first of 2 such episodes for Babylon 5 itself.
Absolutely. In fact, folks, when you watch this episode, if you haven't already, or if you do a rewatch, you do need to pay attention to the little details and some of the comparisons, because you're really going to want to watch this and compare it to another episode, I believe in season 4, right?
I think so.
Yeah. It will be interesting. Lots of politics in this episode, at least Babylon 5 politics.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, you mentioned here that JMS didn't know if Warner Brothers would accept this script.
No, simply because it was something that really hadn't been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that anything in the content was necessarily controversial, okay? It was that it is such a complete break of format and flow with the episode. He didn't know if he would be able to sell it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad they took this because it kind of gives you a different perspective on things.
Yeah.
For the first season and up to this point in the second season, you've been kind of an insider and you know what's going on, and it's kind of neat to step outside and see and look from the outside in what actually, when they're being official,
right,
what things are like.
And another aspect of the show, and we'll see this especially as we talk about it, and especially once you give the synopsis. But one of the key things of the show, and one of the reasons why he did it, today we have Netflix. We have Amazon Prime. We have Hulu Plus. For those who don't have that, there's also often video on demand, depending on who your cable service is. Back in 1995, if you had a VCR and you were able to get the automatic start to work correctly, you might be able to catch the episodes you miss. But if you were trying to dive into a new series 2/3 of the way through the second season, you were hosed.
Yeah.
This was a way to get new viewers into BAB 5 late into the second season. There's a lot of background. You really get a full background to get up to speed on the show out of this.
That's very true. I've never looked at it from that perspective.
Uh-huh. Well,
Of course, I've been watching it all along, so.
Right. But keep that in mind as you listen to Jim give us a synopsis of the episode. So with that said, Jim, let's go for it.
All right.
Archive. Access. Initiated.
Babylon 5 becomes the subject of an interstellar network news report on the activities aboard the station. 36 Hours on Babylon 5, hosted by Cynthia Torkman, is a 1-hour investigative report that explores the Narn-Centauri conflict as it threatens to spread through the sector, and also features interviews with most of the station's command staff, as well as Ambassadors Delenn, Jakar, and Malari. Well, there it is.
That was short and sweet.
Yeah, it's short. I have been working on not quite being so detailed, and I did find a book that helped me do that.
Uh-huh.
So I'm learning how to write summaries. That was a 30-second summary.
Yes, that was a rather concise synopsis.
Yes.
But on this particular episode, concise really kind of sums it up.
Well, without going back through previous events, there's not a whole lot of stuff there that hasn't already been talked about.
Yep. Well, folks, let us know if you like the shorter synopsis.
Character. Files. Open.
So, our cast for this episode.
Yeah, we have numerous people here. Kim Zimmer as Cynthia Torkman,
Who you probably don't know that well if what you watch is mostly primetime.
Mm-hmm. But she is mostly known for her soap opera roles.
And if you look at her credits, she's definitely major league there.
Yeah. And we had Christopher Curry as Senator Ronald Quantrell.
Right.
He's been in Starship Troopers. He was Mr. Rico, Johnny Rico's father. He was in an absolute horrible movie called Chud.
I have heard of it. I have not seen it.
It's, what is it? It's Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dwellers is what it stands for. And the reason this movie stands out in my mind is because the 10 years that I ran the theater, this movie was the lowest grossing movie that I played.
Oh, God.
The highest grossing one was E.T. The lowest grossing one was Chud. I never even watched Chud, so I can't tell you anything about it. And he was in Christopher was also in an episode of Voyager.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, this is another guy that basically, if you look through his credits, he goes all over the place as far as genres. This is a solid working actor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of roles. I did not care for him in this episode, but we'll get to that later.
The actor or the character?
The character.
Then he pulled off the character exactly correctly, I think.
I believe so. Moving on, we got Granville Ames as the very slick-looking psychop on the commercial later in the show.
Right.
Who was a transporter chief in the movie Star Trek Generations.
Okay.
All right. Now, this next one is very interesting. John Christian Gross, and he was Johnny, of course, in the commercial, who had quite a prominent role in an episode of Star Trek Next Generation as J. Gordon Gross, who was one of 3 kids that Picard had to rescue after the ship crashed into a quantum filament.
Okay.
Yeah, and he was the older boy.
Right. Now he kind of fell out of acting after the 90s. I mean, the 90s was his big season.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, he didn't do much more after that. And finally, in our guest cast, Leslie Wing as Johnny's mother.
Right.
She was in a TV movie called Asteroid that I've never seen.
Okay. And don't forget, we had Jose Ray back as Eduardo.
Yeah, he returned. He returned as Eduardo, the dock chief, that we remember from, what was the name of that episode? It was...
That would have been By Any Means Necessary.
That's right, yes. He was the crew
Eduardo
chief
Del
on the dock.
Vientos, crew chief.
And Joshua Cox, of course, returns as Tech Number 1 on CNC.
Yeah, they haven't given him a name yet.
Nope. But he has kind of a neat role in this episode.
Okay. Now, one of the things, it's basically a newscast from Babylon 5.
Mm-hmm.
If you think 20 or 60 minutes doing a location shoot and coming back doing the doing an episode. In this case, it was the ISN reporter that we saw, Cynthia Torkman. And, well, did you notice anything interesting about her name?
I flashed on that, and I hadn't even looked at your notes.
Let me give you a clue.
Inquisition! The Inquisition. Let's begin the Inquisition. Look out, Sam. We have a mission to convert the Jews. We're gonna teach them wrong from right. We're gonna help them see the light and make an offer.
Yeah, let's face it, you can't talk him out of anything.
You got it. Torquemada, that's right.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say, I was hoping you weren't going to say Mel Brooks. And I hope our audience does consist of Mel Brooks fans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who's not a Mel Brooks fan?
Who's not a Mel Brooks fan?
Yeah, History of the World Part 1.
I was going to say, it's a shame there wasn't a Part 2.
I think that was the whole point of calling the first one Part 1.
Yep.
Initiating plot analysis.
Onto the episode. One of the things to note about this: who are the sponsors of 36 Hours?
Oh, it's that sinister group that came in and took away the biotech.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Interplanetary Expeditions. It's a name we need to remember.
Yes.
Especially next week.
Yeah, we first heard about them in the season 1 episode Infection.
Correct. Keep an eye out, because there's going to be a lot more. And remember, Interplanetary Expeditions, where else do we know this from? Wasn't that Sheridan's... didn't that name come up with when Sheridan's sister visited?
Huh. You got me. I don't remember. Did it?
I don't remember. If not, it's going to come up in that relationship, though.
Okay. Well, we'll have to keep an eye out for that.
We definitely have to keep an eye out on that. You know. And one of the other things, and this is all just building into the episode. Now, there's actually a commercial a little bit later from another sponsor that we'll have to talk about, too.
Oh, yeah.
But did you notice in the opening credits, they flashed the crawl hypertext captioned?
Oh, yeah.
Today you see that, yeah, so what?
Mm.
Let's face it, my TV will actually play, it's a smart TV, so it'll actually play the over-the-air broadcast with a window on the side for Twitter feeds.
Right.
I used to do Twitter commentary during certain shows like Fringe, for example.
Oh.
So, you see something like, well, hypertext, yeah, well, so what? Well, remember, this was back in, 95, 96?
Oh, yeah.
prophetic.
Mm-hmm.
So many ways in which this show just kind of gives us a glimpse of the near future as well as the far future.
Oh yeah, and what we take for granted today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's been a number of years that you have been able to live chat during a show. I know that they were showing, I can't remember how many years ago, maybe 10 years, 11 years ago, they were showing The Prisoner and on Sci-Fi, and you could sign into a chat room and chat along with it. It was kind of neat to type stuff in and watch my comments come up on the screen.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, it's fairly common for cast or director or showrunners to be on Twitter chatting about the show during, at least in our genre type shows. That's a fairly common event.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know Clark Gregg has shown up on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. The producers have shown up on Fringe once upon a time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily... and it's fun. I've had them kick back responses or, comment back with them before. So...
see, I avoid those myself because then I can't concentrate on the show.
In a case like that, I usually give it a bit of a rewatch. But onto the floor of the episode. We see them coming into the station, and I love it. They're on the transport Heyerdahl, after the Explorer.
Right.
Kontiki, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And I guess this time the show starts with a boom.
It does, and they're bringing on casualties onto the station, and Dr. Franklin is trying to do triage as people are coming aboard, and here these news people are.
Yep. And you know what? This is one of the annoying things for me. And because why didn't they just, if necessary, physically just haul her off out of that injury zone?
Absolutely. I thought the same thing, but then it wouldn't have served the show. Of course, you have to suspend your disbelief. But I think any real doctor in a situation like that would call security and say, get them out of here. We are busy.
Yeah. I was about to challenge you on what you said about suspending disbelief. And then you clarified it there. It's like, yeah, you're right. When you said that, it's like, I was about to say, I've known people in the media, that's exactly what they would try to do.
Oh, yeah, they would push their way in.
Mm-hmm.
It's you've heard that song, Dirty Laundry.
Yep.
The bubble-headed bleach blonde comes on. How do you feel about this? Well, horrible. Tell you, it sometimes it's quite annoying.
Yeah. Now what we see coming is basically a series of short interview snippets, and that actually is what builds the story of what is happening during those 36 hours on Babylon 5. And in this case, we start out with an interview with Londo.
Yes.
And
who is not very likable here.
No, but he knows the game.
He does not look anything like Londo of the past, though.
Right.
The buffoonish Londo, the guy that you kind of laugh at and take tongue in cheek. No, this is a very, very serious Londo.
Uh-huh. And you'll notice that she keeps tossing him softballs. There's not one challenging question to him at all.
No.
But in the very next snippet, she is taking a rather manipulative approach with Jakar.
Yes, leading questions and things like that. And something, in light of the atmosphere of the EarthGov at this point moving towards more anti-alien rhetoric, would you say that maybe that was partially because Jakar is not human or more human-like?
I think that is completely a part of it, but I think there's a little bit more to it than just that. And it certainly has a lot to do with the new EarthGov administration.
Yeah. Putting a spin on it. Yeah.
I think we're seeing what is starting to build up to the climax or the finale of the season that we'll see in episode 22. The way she treats Londo versus the way she treats Jakar, I think, are the first hints of what will be the events that are key in episode 22 of the season.
Ah, good. That'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm. And I know we're spoiler friendly, but in this case, I'm kind of going gentle on the spoiler.
Yes. Now we get Tech One, who later we find out is going to be named Corwin. Yes, he's getting grilled.
He's getting grilled, but the way he looks over his shoulder at Susan.
Well, I'll tell you what was more priceless was, I mean, his answers were canned. Okay.
Right.
You don't even have to listen to this. Watch Susan over his shoulder.
Yeah.
I mean, she is like, get out of here.
I think I've seen her give warmer receptions to telepaths.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah. And why would a reporter have access to the command center?
If they've, think of what we've seen with some of the embedded soldiers, in the early, in 2000s in the Iraqi wars.
I know.
So,
I never really thought that was a great idea.
I was about to say, but a lot of people ask the same question there too.
Yeah. You take a soldier landing on a beach, and then you have a non-combatant there.
Right.
And of course, the soldier is going to want to keep that person safe, but don't they already have enough to do trying to keep them their own selves safe?
Alive and complete their mission? Yeah.
Yeah, without having to worry about a civilian. I mean,
I so agree with you.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad that has gone away. And that would also, especially in light in the climate that fighting is taking place, if you have live video going on right then and there, what better opportunity would a unscrupulous attacker have to get some fame and fortune by having it on live television?
Yeah, we've seen that recently too, haven't we?
Yeah, it's I think the media should be out of the way. Mm-hmm. Report on what did happen and not report as it happens.
Right. Though there's been a long history of war correspondence, but
and some great ones too.
Yeah. Now the another thing I do have to point out though, this wasn't expected to be a hot event. It would be like sending a reporter to take a tour of the Nimitz.
Yeah.
And then getting thrown back to World War II and not the story. Great movie though. Great movie.
Final Countdown.
Oh, must watch if you haven't.
Yes, Kirk Douglas, great movie.
Yep. F-14s versus zeros.
Yes.
The outcome's obvious, but you're still like, yeah. Anyway, we get some background on the station itself. Apparently, the odds were hugely against Babylon 5 even lasting a year. And it's like in the hundreds against.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Babylon's 1 through 4 didn't have a great deal of luck.
No.
And so, I don't know who the odds makers are in this case, but I think maybe they just kind of felt that perhaps people just couldn't get along.
Mm-hmm.
That rather than making it a place where they can discuss peace, it would just break out in another war.
Right.
Yeah.
And what? Sometimes I wonder through this episode how much of that is really a part of the story versus how much of that is selling the agenda through the story.
Yeah. Well, definitely the senator that they talked to, he's very, very cold.
Yeah, and yes, speaking of senators, yay. It's former Senator Hidoshi. He's gone.
Yeah. Now, is he dead or was he just out of office?
I am presuming that he's just out of office
Okay.
because they said former senator instead of the late senator.
Oh, okay. That makes sense.
That he had a history of sticking his neck out for Sinclair, though, considering Clark and some of the things that would be happening.
Oh, yeah.
It might be, your question might be better phrased, is he dead now, or is he dead yet, or is he dead later?
His career is dead in any case.
Yep, that's true.
Yeah.
And this is the last we hear of him, too.
Yeah.
All right, next piece of interview.
Yeah.
Sheridan. Tough questions.
Yeah. I felt like she was baiting him here.
I agree, but there's a qualifier to that.
Okay.
I think a lot of the questions that she was asking, at least in this case, really did reflect the doubts and hopes and more doubts than hopes, that the people back home were having about the station.
Well, if you noticed when Sheridan started his answer, he looked angry. No, I don't know, angry. He looked
Annoyed.
mildly disturbed.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, look, they are mistaken. We are not ready for a major conflict with anybody.
Right.
And anybody that says that is absolutely wrong.
That's the next segment. Bear in mind, that's the next segment of the interview.
Oh, it is. So I'm getting ahead of myself.
You're getting a little bit of it. You're getting a little bit ahead of you. Yeah, it's the background. It's her background as a captain and the changes between commanding a fighting ship.
Oh, yeah, I see it's down there. Okay, got it.
Mm-hmm. And some of the differences you take in military life, but she, like I said though, but she's being hard on him. But I think in the case of Sheridan, and it might be because, the Clark, the Clark regime doesn't really know where he stands necessarily at this point.
Yeah.
And he is a war hero.
Yeah. In any case, what she tried to do by mildly baiting him, he didn't bite.
Nope.
He just, he was very cool.
That's absolutely correct. And then we get to Franklin's backstory.
Oh.
Yeah.
I've
rewatched the series every several years, and there's one episode in the future that every time brings me to tears, and one episode, this one in particular, it creeps me out. That airlock story.
Yeah. In this case, he really got to show his acting chops.
Yeah.
And the delivery of that story was right on, and what a gruesome story that was.
But it's probably the most accurate description, at least that I can't think of it. There's not been a case in the space program where there actually has been a person spaced, but from what we know from the science, this is probably the most accurate description of vacuum exposure that we've seen.
Well, and the hook that got me was when he looked in the camera and he said, we make jokes about spacing people or pushing somebody out of an airlock, and he says that it's not a joke.
Yeah.
It is not funny.
Right.
And now I'm going to say, okay, yeah, up to a point, until Susan Ivanova starts telling people she's going to do, then it is funny.
Then it is funny.
Yes.
Yep. Now, we get back to some background on the station again. First year was kind of rough, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Boom, bang, and murder.
Yeah. What was it? 50 violent murders?
Let's see. Half a dozen murders, 3 acts of sabotage, including a bomb that blew out 2 levels, and a barely averted attack by the Vorlon Empire.
Oh, I thought she said there was 50 violent.
Since then, 50 deaths by violence.
Yeah.
Yep. But when you take that into account, that you're talking a city of 250,000, That's not bad.
Well, yeah. All right.
And it's not just a city of 250,000. It's a city of 250,000 in essentially a war zone.
Oh, yeah. And
I mean, you're talking Detroit.
a very diverse population.
Yeah, you're talking Detroit here. If Detroit could say they have had only 50 deaths by violence in a year, there'd be places signing up to visit to see how they did it.
Yeah.
So context.
That's very true. But then again, you can say, okay, there were 50 out of this many and so forth and so on. And, statistics are good if you are in the insurance business and you're an actuary or something like that.
Or a clinical scientist like I am.
I would rather know more specifics myself.
Yeah. Yeah, 50 deaths by violence is pretty vague.
Are we counting the creature that Marshall Teague became?
Exactly.
Well, if they hadn't stopped him, there'd have been a heck of a lot more deaths by violence.
Right.
Or what about the Soul Hunter? Or
does 50 deaths by violence and does 50 deaths by violence include security having to take down a bad guy?
So it's statistics are okay, but I like specifics better.
Yep. Sadly, you still see this kind of misreporting, or better yet, manipulative reporting in the news on a regular basis.
Oh, well, of course.
Just get into the subject of gun violence with me someday and see how they abuse those statistics.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, if it's just to look on Facebook. If it's on Facebook, it's got to be true, right?
Right.
Okay.
Just like you can completely trust anything Wikipedia says.
Yeah, yes, of course.
Yep. Now, Jakar, we close out this segment of the news broadcast with Jakar noting that he's going to be having an announcement. And he's going to announce that Babylon 5 has been used by the Centauri to transfer weapons, including weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah. But, at this point in the show, I was like, okay, now prove it.
Yep. And he's making threats about shutting down Babylon 5, if necessary, to stop it.
Yeah, well, I do you think maybe he might have been grandstanding for the camera a little bit?
I think we're going to find out.
Okay.
All right, when we come back to the episode, this was one of the most sinister pieces of the entire episode to me. Sinister.
Oh, yeah.
Because she starts talking about the newly formed Office of Public Morale.
Yeah.
And how Clark has risen to new levels of popularity because the administration's emphasis on addressing the needs of Earth.
Oh, yes.
Woo. I'm sorry, that is just creepy. And boy, it tells you just how timeless Babylon 5 is, because I can think right now today half a dozen ways that this same kind of approach either applies or can be seen throughout the world today.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I mean,
and I'm not just talking about American electoral politics. But dear God, you go to Europe and look at what's happening.
Well, and it's been all the way back through history. This is really disturbing.
Yes.
This is like a hive mind.
Uh-huh.
A one-man group thinker.
Yeah.
Wow. And how people fall for this is really what disturbs me.
Like I said, it's just, in a way, you're right. It's just the theme that keeps repeating itself throughout history.
Yeah.
But there's a brilliance in the way it gets distilled and presented here.
Yeah.
That's just not dated.
Well, and we've already had a hint of this, haven't we?
Yep.
And
we've had a few.
And it is going to come back even worse later on.
Yeah. And we're going to see some more hints of this you've already given a hint of it when talking about how she treated Jakar compared to Londo.
Uh-huh.
But moving on, we finally meet. Now, is Senator Quantrell Hidoshi's replacement, or was he just contacted as a consultant because he's familiar with the station? We really don't know.
Don't know that, and we don't find that out, but I suspect he was probably endorsed by powers that be as a person who to go to
Yep.
give the correct view.
Yeah, and
we got to follow the party line.
He notes how expensive the place is, and here's where we get into that discussion about the military. He rather overestimates Earth's military, I suspect.
Yes.
When he's questioning the value of the station.
Uh-huh. And Sheridan retorts, and he's not real impressed with what he hears.
No, not at all.
So, as I was saying earlier, when I mistook the other scene for this scene, she gets him into a position where he is explaining that, look, we are not prepared to go to war again. And as he talked on, he alluded that we had lost the war to the Minbari. Now, we know that we had all but lost that war to the Minbari until the Minbari surrendered.
And she reminds him of that. It's like, but we didn't lose the war. The Minbari did surrender.
Well, she didn't say that we didn't lose the war.
Yes, she did.
Did she say that specifically?
Absolutely.
I don't recall that.
Here's the actual lines, and let's play it back from Sheridan. Let's play that entire clip, Sheridan talking to her, starting with all due respect.
Well, with all due respect to Senator Quantrell, speaking as someone who did his part in the front lines, I'd have to say we still haven't fully recovered from the Minbari War. And we haven't anywhere near the level of technology we would need in the event of another major conflict. And anybody who thinks that we could hold our own against the Minbari, the Centauri, and God forbid, the Vorlons, is just plain kidding himself.
You sound angry about it.
No, I'm not. It just sounds to me like jingoism and self-deception and armchair quarterbacking. Anytime you lose a war, you just wait a few years and you'll hear from everyone who thought that we could have won if they'd have done the fighting.
Except, of course, Captain, we didn't lose the war. The Minbari did surrender.
Of course.
Okay,
so yeah, Sheridan's response there is like, yeah, I'm not gonna fight that one.
Yeah, she was baiting him there for sure. And he wasn't right, but she didn't say we won the war. She said we didn't lose.
We didn't lose the war. Correct.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, and now we switch back again to our perky and energetic commander, Susan Ivanova.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Oh.
I laughed my rear end off.
Yeah. And you know what really was a real downer about this scene?
What?
Is she said perky right into Susan's ear, and Susan didn't turn around and knock her into the next.
I think Susan was trying to pretend she didn't exist.
Oh, I'm telling you. That was a letdown. Perky?
Oh, yeah. Just let Susan dig her kneecaps out with a spoon.
Oh, my goodness. So I got to hand it to Susan. She showed a great deal of restraint there.
But we get some fascinating history behind her. How and why she joined Earth Force.
Yes.
Though she's rather curt about that's all the story you're going to get.
She's not going to be very forthcoming.
Nope. I don't blame her.
Well, she's a very private person, and she doesn't like telepaths. She doesn't like people digging into her past. She does not feel it is relevant to what she is doing.
Mm-hmm.
And if she's being interviewed as the commander or the first officer of the station, then that's the context within which she should be being interviewed in her mind, I would imagine.
Yeah. And is this next piece, is this the only segment really where we have Garibaldi being interviewed?
Yeah, they talked to Garibaldi twice.
In the final wrap up at the end.
Yes. But this is the one time that they do.
Yeah, but as far as the actual segment, I thought so.
Yeah.
Garibaldi
likes boredom.
Yep. And he keeps it nice and boring, nothing back about himself. More or less what you'd expect from Garibaldi.
Yes. Well, I can relate because as a teacher, as far as I'm concerned, in education, boring is good.
And safe.
Well, yeah. Too much excitement is not desirable and not conducive to a learning environment.
Yep. Now, from here, we get a tour of the alien sector.
Yeah.
Which, okay, there was one piece there that, for me personally, was mildly disturbing. It was that comparison of alien to beast.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems almost like this show, and when I say this show, I'm referring to the 36-hour show from the future, not Babylon 5 itself.
Mm-hmm.
It really seems like 36 Hours is trying to paint aliens as beasts in general.
Oh, well, it's a very Clark-esque attitude.
That is true.
Mm-hmm.
She did get to see and talk to Kosh.
Yeah, I guess if you call that a conversation.
Hey, she got as much from him as most people do.
Well, she didn't get, yeah, she did, but I guess the Pebbles hadn't voted yet, so.
Yeah. Just don't take a hint. Don't mess with the Vorlons.
No, if the Vorlon wants to talk to you, he will talk to you.
As far as your thoughts about the direction Torkman was planning to take, or her intent, her agenda, we really get, as far as aliens are concerned, we see that full-blown in this next segment where she interviews Delenn.
Yeah.
Now we get a lot of Minbari background, huge ice cap, lots of crystal, kind of gives you the hint that it's a little bit colder. The crystal, maybe that's why their skeletal system is so much stronger. 3 languages, and then she just goes after Delenn with daggers.
Yeah. Reduces Delenn to tears, which was another surprise.
Delenn is normally not that emotional, especially when it's on public display.
Yeah. Did you kind of feel? I kind of felt a little bit like that was a bit of a plot hole.
To some degree, yes, but also remember, she's still getting used to being half human.
Okay, I'll give you that.
And she's, especially over several of the last episodes, has really, really been feeling the weight of her isolation.
Because, well, and at the same time, I thought about this, and if this Delenn that we saw in this scene were to face Sebastian, there's no way she would have survived.
She would have failed.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So she it was either a huge plot hole, or Delenn has an awful lot of growing to do.
I think it's partly the latter. I think it's partly the isolation. I don't think she's realized, and this goes with your idea of growth, I don't think she's quite realized the extent to which she has to grow, and the extent of price the role and path that she set herself upon is going to cost.
Yeah. Well, in any case, the questions that were posed to her were inappropriate.
Way over the line.
Yeah, and absolutely designed to get the reaction that they got.
It was intended to wound, and it was intended to advance that anti-alien agenda.
Yes.
So we find out a little bit more about what's going on with the Centauri and their weapons. There's a council meeting, and they have been allowed to bring their cameras in.
Yeah. Another interesting place to have cameras.
Yeah, I'm sure no one was happy about that. Now we find out from Ivanova's investigations that Jakar was right. They were using the station to transport weapons. Though Londo points out we didn't actually bring them onto the station.
Well, yeah, it was the coordinates where exchanges were made, but not on the station itself, according to Londo.
It was still Babylon 5 space, though, so Londo's excuse is pretty weak. And by the way, something's mentioned here. Mass drivers.
Yes.
Keep that particular weapon in mind.
Mm-hmm.
If you're an old sci-fi hand, I know when I first heard that reference 25 years ago, I was thinking, oh, cool. Because, if names like Larry Niven, Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, if those kinds of names ring bells to you, then you recognize mass drivers.
Mm-hmm.
You want to engage in planetary warfare and be sure you've defeated your enemy, then fine. Throw asteroids or comets at them.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what a mass driver is.
Yeah. In any case, they find evidence of weapons of mass destruction.
Yep. And then the lights go out.
Yeah.
And yeah.
We are going to get some boom today.
We get some boom today. We have a shooting war going on outside.
Yeah, full-blown three-way fight.
Uh-huh. And the station is getting hits. It's getting damage from it.
Not a great deal of damage, but still, it's enough to make some noise.
It's enough to make some noise. It is enough to actually cause a hull breach in Blue Sector.
Yeah.
So Sheridan tries to get them to stand down, and the other sides are not exactly thrilled about that.
No, they are angry and fighting, and they're not going to stop.
Mm-hmm. So Sheridan takes the gloves off the fighter pilots.
Yeah.
And cleans that little mess up fairly quickly. He doesn't give a darn about Narn Centauri. He's got a station to protect.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. We get back to Jakar in the next interview segment.
Mm-hmm.
She's still being aggressive, I think. But Jakar's prepared this time.
Yeah. And we find out that the Centauri enslaved the Narn 150 years ago. However,
Mm-hmm.
if you take the other point of view, the Centauri point of view, they didn't enslave them. We tried to help them.
Oh, gosh, yeah, the contrast between Jakar and Londo's story.
Yeah. Well, Jakar, he explains his father was killed by crucifixion for merely spilling a drink.
Yep. And we're reminded of the words never again.
Mm-hmm. So,
Though Torkman kind of finishes this off with the implication that the Narn are losing to the Centauri. And I don't know, I suspect that from the way it's sounding, that, some of the hints that we've been getting, that's probably true.
I had the same feeling as I watched this. I felt that the Narn are getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah. But then we get Londo's side of the story.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's a very different picture being painted.
Yeah, I wrote in the notes here, Londo is full of crap.
That's actually a fairly polite way of putting it.
Yes.
How they came to help the Narn, and as soon as the Narn wanted them to leave, it was, okay, bye-bye.
Right. Well, and again,
Send us a postcard.
Another example of history.
Uh-huh.
You know, we
and you notice again, Londo doesn't get any tough questions at all, and he gets a blank slate to say what he wants.
Yeah. No, the missionaries go to South America. They find a little tribe, and the next thing you know, they're wearing Smile T-shirts and flicking Bics. So
Right. Right. Londo finishes out with the only want peace comment.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What-
of course.
That all depends on how you define peace.
We've heard that before. It's kind of like a young child's version of fair. You know, they'll say you're not being fair, and
Right.
a child's definition of fair is what's good for me.
Yeah. That actually seems to be the definition frequently found on public schools and college campuses these days too, unfortunately.
Oh yeah. Oh well, and
I don't want to get you started there. I don't.
yeah, it's something I face on a daily basis. I'll just say that.
Yep. This segment of 36 Hours wraps up with a jump point right on top of the station and word from Londo that Babylon 5 is being blockaded and
Yeah.
that they will fire on any ship and will even fire on Babylon 5 itself.
Yeah. Okay, this is really presumptuous.
Oh.
Unless of course Morden is nearby somehow.
Yeah. The Centauri really want to honk off the Minbari and the Vorlons both?
Oh, and not to mention the humans and every other
Not to
race.
mention humans.
I mean, the
Yeah.
Centauri are single-handedly going to blockade.
The known universe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and sure, maybe they can do it, but they are not. They are definitely not fostering any goodwill here.
No, we're talking big mistake.
Mm-hmm. And now, you know, you got to wonder, what are they hiding in these unopened things that they're talking about?
Well, you know, they brought out the whole. They went to the trouble to bring out the idea of mass drivers.
Of course. So they
Chekhov's gun.
Yeah. So
Or
basically,
in this case, Chekhov's mass driver.
yeah. Basically, we are getting a confirmation by a denial.
Uh-huh. Hey, Troy Heinrichs, I got to use Chekhov's gun too. I don't know if you listened to his Blacklist podcast, but he was all excited about getting to use that phrase recently.
Oh, well, I don't watch Blacklist. I should, but I don't.
You should, just to get Troy's podcast. It is a blast.
On a side note, the Blacklist, they show the Blacklist at the Revival Theater downtown.
Uh-huh.
Because the Revival Theater downtown is owned by one of the writers on the Blacklist.
Oh my.
Yeah. And Troy
Does Troy know this?
Troy knows that because Troy contacted me and asked me about it, and my daughter knows this guy. My oldest daughter. So I got Troy and my oldest daughter together over this, and then Troy consequently found that circuit there, and I think he's interviewed the guy too.
I believe I do remember an interview with one of the writers. So This is the backstory on how it happened.
Yeah, there it is. So
awesome.
At any rate.
Awesome. Well, speaking of commercial breaks, which this Blacklist discussion was, we actually have a commercial break in the show.
Yes.
Psycor. Oh. Psycor commercial. You know, Anthea told me that after all this years, she, and this is her quote, still thinks that is freaky.
It is. Knowing what we know about Psycor, being exposed to their methods already a couple of times, and here the guy comes on. We're your friends. We're
everywhere.
Yes, join Psycor.
Speaking of ominous, Uh-huh.
The core is mother, the core is father.
Don't forget to single frame it.
I did, as a matter of fact. As I was watching, I saw that flash, and it's like, wait a minute, what is this, some mistake? But
Nope. The psi core is your friend. Trust the core.
Yeah.
Now, for the record, they made sure, because, subliminal flash messages are illegal.
Yes.
They made sure that it was long enough to be legal, and also to give people, the VCR people that I was talking about back then,
Yeah.
a long enough flash that they actually had some hint to look for that particular Easter egg.
Yeah, it was. It would not have been seen at the normal speed of what I believe is 24 frames a second had it only been one frame.
Yeah. That whole interesting. From what I understand, that kind of subliminal thing has been disproven since, or at least seriously questioned.
Yeah, I think the jury is still out on that. But even though we still see sometimes today, we see the same kind of thing going on. There's nothing that irritates me more than a television commercial where everything is black and white except the product. That aggravates the hell out of me.
Uh-huh.
Or when the product flies at you repeatedly on the screen.
What annoys me in advertising actually is less that kind of stuff than some of the paid product placement in the shows themselves.
Oh, yeah.
When the car backs up in front of the camera and you've got the Ford logo filling your 50-inch TV's entire frame.
Right. No, and now to me, that's irritating to you. To me, that's kind of amusing. Okay, especially when you see, you've got two people having a conversation across a table, and the camera angle is on the person talking, so it switches back and forth, and there is let's say, a can of Coca-Cola, and of course it says Coke, and then when you get the other angle, it's the same angle on the can, the can is turning with the camera. That doesn't aggravate me. It makes me laugh.
Or another, you take laptops, and what you'll find on laptops is the logo of the laptop.
Oh.
On the company logo on the laptop is actually upside down.
Yes. Yeah.
So when the laptop is open, you see the logo right side up rather than how you would see it if you actually had the product.
Now that's just...
That actually started with the OJ trial.
Yeah. That's just smart design. You want your name out there, but you're not beating somebody in the face with it.
But when it becomes something that happens every single episode, 3 times an episode, it's like, okay, we're going to see, we're going to, you see them head to the car, you're going to see the Ford logo again.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I'm not necessarily picking on Ford because all of the auto manufacturers do it. But it was a running gag on Fringe.
Well, it was also,
at least with the fandom.
It was also a running gag on Under the Dome when they had a Prius.
Really?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, Wayne and Troy had a field day with the Prius.
Oh gosh.
Almost every show.
I've got to watch that show just to listen to Troy and Wayne.
I'll tell you what, skip watching the show and just listen to the podcast.
I did catch several of their podcasts, in all honesty, and they were a riot. I think in some ways it was almost off because those two men are absolute gentlemen normally.
Oh yeah,
but it tells you something about Under the Dome, the way they tear into it.
Oh, well, what else could they do? It was horrible.
I sometimes wonder if their podcast is partly what kept the show alive as long as it did. just so people could listen to them.
It's the only reason I watched the show. I watched the show so I could enjoy the podcast.
Oh gosh. I'm tempted.
I said that in comments I sent to them many, many times.
This may be something I do over the summer hiatus.
Oh, if it weren't for Wayne and Troy, I would have dropped that show halfway through the first season.
Oh gosh. Well, anyway,
yeah.
This isn't an Under the Dome podcast.
Thank goodness.
Thank God. Oh gosh.
Well, back to the Psycop commercial.
The Psycop and product placement. Speaking of product placement, who makes the Psycor's hair products? Have you noticed this? Like, they've got this thing with snappy, groomed, hairstyles.
Oh yeah, it's Brill cream. Got to be Brill cream. I bet you most of our listeners don't even know what Brill cream is.
Think hair product.
Yeah.
I don't know. Is this still around? I don't even know what the modern equivalents are.
Well, we just started calling it after a while. We call it greasy kid stuff.
Yep. Yep. Oh gosh. Anyway, that Psycor commercial, it tells you a lot about the Corps.
Yeah, and that's where the kid came in, and I think he was about pretty close to the same age as he was on the TNG episode. So they must have been filmed pretty close together.
It tells you about the Corps without telling you anything about the Corps.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things in that commercial that was a non sequitur as far as Psycor is concerned is the kid after he was done with his reconditioning or whatever, he was back with his mother
for a visit.
Yeah. Well, he would not have been normally allowed to visit his mother because, as I said before, the Corps is mother, the Corps is father.
The Corps is father.
Yes.
You got it.
So right there is a bald-faced lie.
Well, we get back to the main show, and after a short comment from the senator, and about this is one of the things. You notice all of the senator's interview was after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
No, it wasn't. I'm sorry, I'm wrong. Because Sheridan responded to the senator's comments beforehand in an earlier segment. But in here, at least, his comments are after the fact, while the rest of the broadcast is more or less real time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then what about that closing remark that Senator Quantrell said?
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
We'll definitely get to that. But Sheridan calls the bluff.
Mm-hmm.
He's guessing the Centauri are bluffing. Like I said, they're not ready to honk off the entire known universe just yet.
Of course not. But Londo is a big talker.
Yep.
And if somebody's going to take him seriously, but let's not forget that Londo does have the muscle to back it up if he decides to do it.
If he decides to do it. No one knows that yet, though.
Now, I don't think Morden and his associates are ready at this point to go that far.
Well, not only that, I think they are suspicious. They're at least growing suspicious where Sheridan is concerned. So I don't think they would be willing to take out BAP-5 necessarily just yet.
No. Now, what about that senator's remark? We need more good reporters like you.
Oh, creepy. The character is a total creep.
If that isn't a dead giveaway that this is a setup.
Yep.
Now are we trying to put forth an agenda against Babylon 5 here?
You think?
I don't know.
I think they're getting the idea that Babylon 5 is probably not worth the money, and let's postpone this for just a moment.
Okay.
Because while the bluff gets called, we get some more boom.
Yeah.
Narns show up and blow the Centauri out of the sky.
Yep.
and the Narn themselves are too damaged to escape successfully.
Yeah,
and they go boom too.
Yeah, their jump engine malfunctions. They cannot quite form a jump gate, and they are basically obliterated.
Mm-hmm. So from this point, we go into the wrap-ups.
Yep.
And Torkman is coming back with the discussion on whether or not it was worth it, whether or not Babylon 5 is worth it.
Uh-huh.
And pretty much everyone that's been interviewed gets a shot at that. Mike, more or less simply a yes. Londo, oh gosh, the way he described, I've got my little list of thoughts. Go ahead and jump in at any point on me.
Okay.
Mike is boring. It's just not much more than a yes, in my opinion.
Right.
So he's got a few more.
I'll go along with
Londo calling the blockade a peaceful protest.
Of course. that's typical of what Londo has been doing the entire episode, trying to paint themselves like he looks. Hey, I'm just doing my thing here.
Boy, I could pull. There are so many modern parallels you can pull on this one.
Oh yeah, so we're just misunderstood.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Delenn actually gets to make a fair statement here.
Yeah, humans. She admires humans because we build communities.
Yes, and we see that is something that she sees as one of our unique strengths.
And she doesn't follow through, of course, and tell everybody how our communities try to kill each other all the time on top of that. So
no, but that is she does discuss that later in the series. And because she's talking about how, yes, we do fail, but we get up and try again.
Mm-hmm.
And we get up and go again.
Yeah.
No other race would have gone to a Babylon 5. They would have given up after Babylon 1.
Yeah. So is the glass half full or half empty?
Mm-hmm. Quantrell.
Yeah.
Back to your comment there. After just have to see.
Yeah, he's just kind of cold on it, you know. I don't know. He says one thing, but he's talking out of both sides of his face, more or less, and his mannerisms, the tone of his voice, and his body language all say, "Yeah, right. We don't need this." Okay.
Like you were saying a few moments ago, agenda.
Yeah, we have it. We definitely have an agenda to put forth. Jakar, you didn't put Jakar's reaction in the notes, and Jakar's reaction was kind of interesting too. As he breezed by, he said, "I thought so at one time, but now I don't know."
Yeah.
Because let's face it, Jakar is getting the short end of the stick.
He's definitely decided she's not worth talking to at this point. Franklin and Eduardo actually are sort of the same response.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just put the numbers on it. Franklin's numbers are lives saved. Del Vientos's numbers are the size of his pension.
Yeah.
But it's a pure practicality in their approach.
Indeed.
Sheridan. Sheridan's comment really sums up the episode here.
It
puts meaning to it.
It does.
Should we go ahead and play that one?
The job of Babylon 5 is not to enforce the peace. It's to create the peace. And this place was built on the assumption that we could work out our problems and build a better future. And that, to me, is the key issue. See, in the last few years, we've stumbled. We stumbled at the death of the president, the war, and on and on. And when you stumble a lot, you start looking at your feet. Now, we have to make people lift their eyes back to the horizon and see the line of ancestors behind us saying, "Make my life have meaning." And to our inheritors before us saying, "Create the world we will live in. I mean, we're not just holding jobs and having dinner. We are in the process of building the future. That's what Babylon 5 is all about. Only by making people understand that can we hope to create a better world for ourselves and our posterity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Brilliant quote. And I don't think he's just talking about the station Babylon 5 when he says that.
No. That can be applied in a lot of different places.
Yeah. I don't know what that's one of the quotes that leaves me at a loss for words.
Mm-hmm. But you know something? What was kind of funny was at the end of the episode, and I mean the 36 hours on Babylon 5 episode.
Uh-huh.
It seemed like the reporter all of a sudden was acknowledging both sides.
To some degree, yes. At least she certainly letting Sheridan have that full quote and not editing it down.
Mm-hmm.
She certainly gave his perspective.
Well, even in her summing up remarks, she seemed way more fair than she had been for the rest of the episode.
Yeah, I think I think after, and this is the cynic in me coming out, unfortunately, I think after the agenda she had pursued up to that point, she could afford to be magnanimous.
Well, that's true. She did expose her stripe very well.
Uh-huh. Well, my friend, with that strong of a quote, I can't add anything else to this. And we have been running for a while. I think it seems to me like we've talked this one out.
Yeah, we've been through this one pretty good. And you know what?
It is a fun favorite episode.
You know what? There was Boom today. We had Boom.
Yes, there was Boom today.
And there will probably be more Boom tomorrow.
Well, of course, there's always Boom tomorrow. Folks, before I say goodnight, please give us feedback, give us email. We love to hear from you, and give us iTunes reviews.
Oh, yes. We really, really need some iTunes reviews.
All right. Take care, my friend.
Yeah, well, good night then.
Good night, sir.
Podcast terminated. Thank you for listening to the Babylon Project podcast. You can email Raul and Jim at the Babylon Project podcast @gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at the Babylon Project Podcast. On the internet, we are at babylonprojectpodcast.wordpress.com. To subscribe to the podcast, you can find us on iTunes, or you can subscribe to the RSS feed on the webpage.